This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. In regards to the event that occurred in Georgia that you're hearing about all over the controlled media, all my videos on that topic are available on the website, but I do need to touch on a specific topic here for people to see in regards to technology. Because the more we hear about how technology is saving lives, the more laws and regulations that get passed that allow artificial intelligence and technology to exist in the same space as us. In fact, giving authority over to artificial intelligence and technology. And we all know that they don't let a crisis go to waste, especially a crisis that they're responsible for creating. There's many agendas that can come out of these things. We know the obvious ones where they want to pass red flag laws, which is very clear that these things people will eventually agree to, and then they'll change what the description of a danger to society is from an illegal immigrant to somebody hiding in the caves, of course, to somebody who questions the government. And all they need to do is change their propaganda, which we've seen over the last couple of years, where they've convinced people that people like you and me are now a danger to society because we're actually questioning the news and questioning the things that are being told to us. So they want the red flag laws in place, and they need to convince both sides of this, and that's part of what they're doing. But the other thing, again, in addition to the obvious ones, is technology. Remember, the World Economic Forum, the great, that reset thing that they put a little exclamation box underneath all of our videos for when we talk about. This is something that's going to happen. But what people don't understand is that smart city governance and artificial governance requires the infrastructure to be taken down. It means all new infrastructure. And if you don't know what that means, it means the way that you see a lot of these stores being torn down and rebuilt, the way you see cities being torn down to be rebuilt to bring in smart cities, the same will go with the school system. The school system needs to implement smart technology. It needs to give authority to technology overall. Right? And once you submit authority to technology, you start building a surveillance state around you. You start imprisoning yourself with technology and constant surveillance. So the theme here is about how technology is going to continue to save our lives. They don't want you to think about the dangers of technology versus, of course, what they tell you are the pros of technology. So when a situation like this happens, they tell us that a tech company can actually prevent the problem that the government is creating, because we know that they stage all these events. They can actually come in and save the day if we have this type of technology in place. So this company called Centegix is being promoted quietly now in the mainstream media after this event in Georgia. I'm going to play for you a clip from CNN where they explain about how thankfully they had this technology, which is wearable technology, that was able to be used to trigger the school and put it into a lockdown. Listen to this.
School administrators, we heard from police that there's this new system that was put in place in your school just a week prior. The door is locked. And so describe what that did and how that created a much, much safer and much less deadly incident this time around in a school.
Yes, ma'am. So I believe the program is called Centegix. Basically, every teacher has a little digital card on them where we can press a button where 4 presses gets our admin involved, and then 8 presses of the button gets law enforcement sent to the high school and alerts that there is a physical threat on campus.
How important was it to have that in place? Not all schools have it, certainly. How important was this? Because you said that officers got there about 2 minutes, 120 seconds from the time of the initial shooting.
Critical. I will tell you that I actually saw the lockdown initiate before I even heard gunshots. So I had time to prepare. Someone saw the threat even before he started to engage. So it's almost we knew before anything truly even happened, before lives were taken. So it's insane, the technology that we have access to, and we practice it quite a bit.
Okay, so of course we need to be thankful of the technology, and the technology is endless. The technology will continue to be endless because what it does at first, or what they do at first, is they start off with stories like this, right? Then you start saying, okay, we need more security in schools. Oh, okay, then we need people to have wearable technology. Oh, okay. And then wearable technology eventually becomes technology that's implantable technology. That's where all of this stuff heads. But I'm going to show you what Centegix is, which they was just talking about in this video, which they had conveniently in place at this school, and conveniently 24 hours later, the mainstream media is talking about how this could be a great resource for all schools to have. This will be a resource where a teacher is wearing a necklace that has a button on it. You can go and press the button. You press the button X amount of times and the police are called. You press the button X amount of times and the school goes into a sudden lockdown. The way people have been trained with technology, they're going to look at this and they're going to say, what's the big deal? What's the difference? It's the same as having a phone and calling 911. But what they don't realize is that the lockdown aspect of this, where they could literally shut a school into lockdown, lock the doors, lock this, have smart technology infrastructure implemented in the schools, just like they want in our homes, which creates a prison via technology. This is what the Centegix is that they were talking about in that clip that helped save and prevent this from going even further.
You are the first line of defense in the safety and security of our students and staff. With the Centegix Crisis Alert platform, you now have the ability to notify the appropriate responders immediately in the event of any crisis or emergency. The Crisis Alert badge you have been given is the core of the solution and should be worn at all times. Wear your badge above the waist, either clipped to your lapel or on a lanyard. It is important that you do not leave the badge unattended or accessible to students. Hang keys, flash drives, or other items. Glue or attach other badges to your Crisis Alert badge. Puncture, bend, or damage the badge. Your Crisis Alert badge will work anywhere on the school campus, both inside and outside. It will also work if you are on a campus at another school in your district. With just a click of the button located on the Crisis Alert badge, you have the ability to trigger the Crisis Alert platform. Your badge can initiate two types of alerts: Staff Alert, which is an urgent request for help needed, and campus-wide emergency lockdown. The most common alert is the Staff Alert, which requests the immediate attention of responders, such as in a medical emergency or a fight. To activate, simply click the button on your Crisis Alert badge 3 times. The badge will vibrate briefly, then stop, letting you know the signal has been received and help is on the way. While you attend to the problem at hand, responders such as the principal, nurse, and resource officer are notified of your location and can quickly come to your aid. The second and more serious alert is the campus-wide emergency lockdown, such as in the case of an active shooter situation. To activate, keep clicking the button until your badge vibrates for a prolonged period. All computer screens in the school will display a lockdown alert with important instructions. You will know that lockdown is initiated because the strobes in each classroom and throughout the school start flashing, and a pre-recorded lockdown announcement is played over the intercom.
This is a lockdown alert. Immediately lock your doors. Turn off the lights. Stay out of sight.
Now you can focus on your students and proceed with your school's lockdown procedures and be confident knowing help is on the way. The Crisis Alert platform also sends your alerts to a centralized desktop interface in the district head office where all schools are monitored. Using the same desktop interface or a smartphone, the district office can initiate emergency protocols remotely, appropriate to the situation. Your new Crisis Alert badge by Centegix is key to keeping your school safe. It is important to wear it and keep it accessible at all times. If you lose or misplace your badge, please let your administrator know immediately. Remember, there are 2 types of alerts. The Staff Alert, for when urgent help is needed, is 3 clicks. To trigger a campus-wide emergency, just continue clicking until the school is in lockdown. Ensuring the safety of students is one of the most important parts of your job. The Crisis Alert platform and Crisis Alert badge by Centegix give you the peace of mind to know that with the simple click of a button, help is on its way.
So does that look like something you would want implemented in your school? No, it looks like legitimately a prison. However, what they'll do at first is they're going to start implementing stuff like this to put this infrastructure into schools, because the left and the right, as they argue over what needs to be done, what they don't do is question the reality of the news. They still believe that the news is real. What they see on the news is real, and that they can't stage this stuff and act it out. And conservatives who do question it and say the government's behind it, they still are getting convinced that what needs to happen is we need to get more red flag laws in place, and we need to get these things out of the hands of civilians. But in the meantime, while they do a tug of war here about what needs to happen, everybody will agree on one thing: technology. The left and the right will agree, well, fine, put more technology in the school. Let's put more tech here. Let's put more surveillance cameras there as they build this prison planet around us, right? Literally allowing these companies to look in and monitor the school and put eventually what this turns into with a company like Centegix is that when they talk about a lockdown of the school, when you have smart locks in place, which are coming, these companies are going to be able to lock people into buildings, lock people out of buildings, and people out there are so passive about it. They're like, well, that's for everybody's safety. Meanwhile, they don't realize who they're giving authority to over having controls via technology over locks and everything else. I mean, what this ends up looking like is 1984 or They Live, where you have all these people who are trained, mentally trained, right, with propaganda under hypnotism to believe all the lies of the news. And then they act as stooges for the government. This is what we're seeing happening right now. We have people on the left and the right who are actually more mad at people like me and you for not being involved in the left-right paradigm than they are at one another. And they obviously hate one another based on politics, right? Liberals hate conservatives, conservatives hate liberals. They don't want to live among each other. And if you tell them that you don't believe in either side, well, that just infuriates them. That just infuriates their narcissism because they can't believe you would even think that the entire thing would be rigged. You can't think that you could what do you think, you're smarter than the whole system? No, most of us actually realize the whole system is based on trust, and the whole trust that is in this system with our votes is based off of what? Who are we trusting to count votes? Who are we trusting in the media? Who are we trusting that is a billionaire running for president? We shouldn't be trusting any of them. So they're using all this hypnotism and all this mind control to turn these people into little communist foot soldiers. So in other words, we have little rats, right? We have rats on platforms like this. We have rats wherever we go, right? And what they've done is they've trained people to become the little rats for them. So when they see someone like me, they'll rat and they'll go and report it. Oh, go and report so-and-so. Go and report so-and-so, right? And in a system like that, in a school, they'll tell you that it's a great thing where everybody could have this and report on one another. But eventually all this stuff turns. That's what people need to understand. They see it one way now where they're like, oh, you could use this technology to prevent an event from happening, right? Even though there's no real events happening that the government's not creating. And eventually they change. Once this stuff is in place, they change your perspective on who a villain is, on who is a danger to society. And then it just keeps going and going and going. It gets to a point where your words are so offensive that you're saying something that sounds like it might be questionable of the government or questionable of big tech or big corporations. And then that person will just be ratting you out to them. And it'll go on and on and on. And these people feel empowered with their technology and don't realize that they're enslaved by it. It'll almost look like the scene from They Live where, one of the demon aliens sees the character and says, we've got one that can see.
I've got one that can see.
All Caucasian male, doesn't appear armed, wearing sunglasses.
Right, that's one of the things a lot of people don't take out of the movie They Live. There's a lot of stuff that's in that movie that's got a lot of predictive programming. But just the ability with technology in that sense, when they see one that can see, to be able to notify one another through their watch, right, through their wearable technology. And of course, that brings me to all this stuff with this infrastructure, right? All this stuff where they're trying to get this in place in schools, where your school is pretty much a prison, where there's a camera on every corner, there's smart locks to put the schools into lockdowns. People will comply with this in addition to the red flag laws. It gets me thinking more and more about that alert system that they show you where you grab a button and you click on that button. Because if you're paying attention to what's going on, all wearable technology like that is a transition into getting everything underneath the skin. All of it. That's why they've been pushing things from the phone to the Apple Watch over the years, to people putting smart watches on them, smart Fitbits and those types of technologies to track and monitor their movements for quote unquote exercise. It's all to prepare you to have this tech inside your body, to be monitored, tracking your calories, tracking your footsteps. That's what they'll be doing with the carbon footprint, right? And we're getting closer and closer to them rolling out technology that's no longer wearable tech, that's implantable tech. And again, this has to do with the Internet of Bodies. This looks a lot like, it looks a lot like things we've seen in the Matrix. It looks a lot like things we've seen with the smart mark. It looks and sounds a lot like where the future of the phone is headed. And this is every single thing, all the technology you know about, the human being becoming the battery, and all of this tech being underneath the skin.
Matrix. Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
Future, you will have such a good digital twin that you'll be able to go into the metaverse, into a virtual reality world, turn a dial, pull a switch, feel around, and actually change it in the real plant.
Absolutely. And this is not far off. I mean, the physical and the digital worlds, they will grow together, and the result is exactly what you just said.
I wanted to ask when you all think we're going to move from this form factor to something that's on your face, glasses, and when computing's all on the edge.
All right, 50 seconds. Who wants to answer quickly?
I think it will go. It will. First of all, it will definitely happen. I was talking about 6G earlier, which is around 2030. I would say that by then, definitely the smartphone as we know it today will not anymore be the usual kind of the most common interface. Wow. Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
Stunned by the sudden rollout of Rook Unlimited's most fantastic device ever, the Smart Mark. Because the Smart Mark is more than just a phone. It's part of you. Use it as cash and even shoot video. Distribution points are all over the city. The Rook Unlimited Smart Mark is worth the wait.
The Smart Mark has brought order to my life.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
23% of the population has been given the Smart Mark, number one.
Time to test our system numbers. Put our new recruits to work. Subtly.
We should find the Flex Fighters.
I ought to find the Flex Fighters.
We should find the Flex Fighters.
You call yourself a man of science. World order is our destiny. Submit to a Smart Mark and join the glorious victory of order over chaos.
People think Smart Marks are brand new Rook tech that will improve their lives.
But your chip makes it possible to control everyone in Charter City, whether they're marked or not.
So while that might sound like a stretch, when you see these things, you have to look at the stories itself and then say, okay, well, where can this go? They know on the surface that every single conservative out there is going to look at this event and they're going to think about, oh, what about the voting? The election's coming up, right? They know that they can't think past the fact that it's a crazy notion to perceive your vote as not counting. At this day and age, with all the control they have, how they could shut down YouTube channels, shut down your stuff that you say on social media sites, just like that they would allow you, though, to vote, that your vote would actually count, that you still are in power, right? People need to get past that notion, and most people just can't. So they know with an event like this that conservatives and Democrats will stay stuck in the left-right paradigm, and they'll start arguing over red flag laws and going and getting the bang bangs. But you got to look at it, too, from the other perspective of the infrastructure. Because remember, Agenda 2030 and what they have planned with artificial intelligence governance, the infrastructure has to change everywhere. So they're quietly praising this type of technology being in place, where 10 years ago you would have said it's insane to have cameras in schools. Now, of course, people are like, yes, get cameras in schools immediately. And then the next thing is we'll get these things that'll lock the entire school down. And you won't think about what could eventually happen, right, with the government. You'll just think to yourself, right, this is to prevent some active person from coming into the school and harming my child. So we could have this in place. There aren't wicked, wicked people behind that who could potentially lock us in our homes, lock us in schools, quarantine us when they say they want to quarantine us and make something up to make us quarantine like they just did. That's where all this stuff heads, us allowing technology like this to be in place. If people don't start looking at the technology itself as being the danger to humanity and society, and they keep looking at each other and their politics, this stuff is going to get put in place, and the blink of an eye, the government will just do what they just did over the last decade. They'll start changing their tone more and more. Over the last 10 years, we've seen how the government has changed its tone on free speech, on rights for certain people versus other people. And now we're at a point where the government's just completely out in the open acting insane. They're not hiding it anymore. And when this stuff is in place, I'm telling you, this is what leads us to a point where we're not only on a prison planet, all the lockdowns, all of the stuff where you could just press a button and it literally could be inside your body, like you saw in that Stretch Armstrong episode, where they could eventually read your thoughts, don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility either. I got videos up, tons of videos up about them at the World Economic Forum talking about that, being able to read your thoughts, see what your coworkers thinking, because that's what it's about. It's about getting inside of your body. You're the data that they are consuming. Right now, we're in a trial period. Because if you think about it, the internet itself is your consciousness. You are typing in things you're thinking. You're typing in things, whether you're posting on your social media outright, something that's on your mind or you're thinking about, or you're searching it in a Google search. This is going directly to the government. They're in your mind. They know what you're thinking about, what you're looking at. Eventually, they won't need this platform when we have implantable technology out in the open. They already have the ability to do it. But when it's out in the open and you're a part of the Internet of Bodies, they won't even need one of these little, you go from the Centegix thing, the Centegix thing, to a point where you're actually allowing Big Brother to have access to the things going on in your mind. And people will be okay with this more and more as we go along with the accepting of technology. Now is the time to pull back on the tech, and no one is talking about pulling back on the tech. I know it's a stretch. I know people will hear this, and the only thing they'll think about is surface level with everything that's going on there in the red flag laws. But we have to look at stuff from these other perspectives because the technology is what imprisons all of us. And that's why the alt-right media never goes against the tech. In fact, I've covered this before with the Daily Wire. They openly promote Apple Vision Pro. They promote these things that blur the lines between reality and, artificial intelligence. They want this stuff in place. This is the argument that you don't ever hear about AI. They talk about the dangers of AI and AI regulation. They don't just say, we need to get rid of AI now. They make people think that all this stuff with AI and cameras and security is for their security because there's people running amok, there's people stealing stuff off their porch, there's stuff going on at schools, there's stuff going on at malls, and then everybody just conforms and says, get cameras everywhere. Then suddenly we look around and we have a surveillance state, and you can't blink without Big Brother knowing about it. That's what we're headed towards. Quietly, while everybody's looking at just the basic surface level stuff, like being able to come to your door and grab your weapon to protect your home and your family that you have, right? That's what we're headed towards, folks. I want to do a rant about it. As soon as I heard about Centegix and I heard the interview on CNN and looked up what that is, right? Campus-wide emergency lockdowns with a button. Giving authority over to who? Well, it's just some security company, right? Just like with the internet, who do we give the authority over to? Who, we pretend like we have actual privacy on here, like they're not going through our emails and going through our chat conversations and all that other stuff. We have no privacy. We're giving it up. We're willingly giving up our rights, our human rights, to tech companies and technology in general. And the goal is to set up AI governance. And these are the ways that they get it in place, the infrastructure in place. These will be implemented in schools in the future. You'll see. Keep listening to it. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.